If you're watching this video, one of two things is probably true about you. One, you seem to have tried every craft imaginable and still haven't really found your thing. Or maybe you just don't like to be not immediately good at creative pursuits and quit before you even give yourself the chance to be bad at something. Do you feel called out? Well, if that's the case, I literally have the video for you, which is a guide to crafts that are good for perfectionists, aka crafts that are really fun to be bad at. I'll link it down below. Or two, you're just a sicko and you're trying to fill up your craft Pokedex with every creative activity imaginable to fill your voracious artistic appetite. If that's you, you're in good company. Or maybe you're just chill and looking for a fun new hobby. That's fine too. What we're going to be talking about today is a collection of not as common, more off the beaten path crafts. And it's actually a part 2. There were so many that I couldn't even cover them all in part 1, and I got a bunch of community submissions. So if you haven't watched part 1 of the niche craft guide yet, I'll link it down below. You can watch it after this if you wanna. That's right, we've got more niche crafts for your special niche brain. And listen, I'm not the originator of any of these crafts, and I know there are going to be folks in the comments who are much more experienced and have a lot of good tips and advice to provide. So if that's you, please share your wisdom. You are a wealth of information. All right, let's jump into the first category, which is arts and crafts. Emphasis on the crafts. Oh, by the way, I'm Kathleen. If you're new here, I make videos about creativity. I do a lot of crafting and DIYing, sustainable style. Thanks for being here. Let's get artsy. First craft, we talked about gelli plate printing in the last craft guide, which are these squishy plates or pads you roll ink onto and do a monoprint. And a monoprint is just a print that you do once, because once it's printed, you have to reapply all of the ink and all of the things you used. However, Rita Lynn recommended that you can also use a glass cake plate or some sort of glass dish to apply your ink to, whether it's with a brayer, whether it's just with your hands or a sponge or a brush, and you can make monoprints that way. Get your glass surface, apply your ink, lay down your paper, or whatever media you're using. Smooth it out, use a brayer if you want to, peel it off, and enjoy that peel. I'm sure it's going to be satisfying. And voila, a unique, one-of-a-kind piece of art. Next, this is one I'm really excited about. Last video we talked about making puppets, and this feels kind of similar. What about making masks? Masks as a craft have been around since faces have existed, and you can make a mask out of anything, and it doesn't even have to go on your face. It could just go on your wall if you wanted it to. I remember making masks in elementary school, and that craft and art class has stuck with me 30 years later. There's something about puppets and masks that has built-in interaction, whether you're moving it around with your hand or you're putting it on your face to play a different part, which I think is really cool. Now, this is one that I'd never heard of before. Marissa recommends hot glue molding. Have you heard of this? Basically, you use hot glue to make sculptures. You can work messy and make kind of the rough shape that you're looking for. While it's still warm, you can sculpt a little with your hands, and then when it's hardened a little more, you can use something like a Dremel or a drill of some sort to shape things even further. Next, something that I've never tried before. This is a recommendation from Volki Palki, and it's 2 cultural crafts. We've got pajaki from Poland and himmeli from Finland, and these are both kinetic type sculptures, kind of like mobiles. And we mentioned mobile making in the last round, so thank you so much to Volki for expanding our mobile making horizons. So you use straw, crepe paper, string to make these very festive and gorgeous hanging structures. And then kind of on the other side of the spectrum visually, we've got himmeli, which is super geometric and sculptural. If anyone else has experience making these or seeing them, let us know down in the comments. I'm very charmed. Speaking of charms, a lot of folks in the last video recommended doing miniatures. So when I think of a miniature, my mind immediately goes to polymer clay miniatures. I feel like during the early days of COVID, that was a thing that got brainwormed into me. Everyone was getting into that. But Alice lets us know in the comments that miniature making is actually very accessible because you can make miniatures out of anything, including trash. Alice recommends saving little plastic lids and beads and pieces of cardboard as a great place to start. This is another one that I had never heard of before. This is from Melanie. We talked about needle felting in the last video, but Melanie mentions nunofelting, which is basically when you combine wool for felting and silk. So you're felting the wool into silk to create this fabric that's super organic. It looks great if you're trying to make something look like nature, like moss or leaves. And apparently nunofelting was developed by Polly Sterling, who was a fiber artist in Australia around 1992. And the name is derived from the Japanese word nuno, which means cloth. Now for each of these categories, I also have a section at the bottom that's for tips and tricks that you might never have heard of before. I'm calling them sicko tips. For example, the first one from Ira is you might know that you can print with a inkjet printer on paper, obviously, but a lot of stuff is made of paper that you could send through your printer. For example, a paper doily, a piece of newspaper. I feel like this would be great for collage and multimedia artists. And I think one of the biggest tips here is that you don't just send the delicate doily through your printer. It would probably muck up the works real good. So you have to attach it somehow to another sturdier piece of paper. Maybe it's just like with a tacky spray adhesive of some sort or double-sided tape, and send that through the printer. And then you also have the benefit of when you peel off the doily with the imagery on it, you have almost like a stencil printed on the original piece of paper. Pretty cool. Second piece of artsy-fartsy sicko advice. It's about paper mache. So paper mache is cool, but often you have to like build a custom armature underneath, whether it's out of wire or newspaper. There's a lot of pre-work that goes into it. So Kabir recommends just thrifting a boring looking but structurally sound object, like a little shelf or a candlestick, and then paper macheing on top of that. So you already have a built-in armature that you can just go crazy on top of. And next, this is kind of the cutest artsy-fartsy sicko tip. But if you're into drawing and you need a tiny little detailed tool to make the tiniest little most delicate lines possible, and you have a dog or a cat around, you could use one of their little whiskers that fell out. Dip it in some ink, and it's the cutest little paintbrush of all time. That was recommended by the Gemini Bard. Thank you for that. Before we move to the next topic, if you don't mind, we're going to just hear a quick word from today's sponsor. I've got exciting news that isn't actually really news yet because it's not set in stone, but I'm hoping to go on a big trip in October to Japan. And in preparation, I'm already thinking about and scheming about how many vintage Sailor Moon figurines I can buy without going bankrupt. And that's where the sponsor of this week's video, Monarch, can help. Thank you, Monarch. Want to say thank you to Monarch? Sorry, I don't think he knows what money is. Monarch is a private, ad-free personal finance platform that brings all of your different accounts into one clean dashboard. It automatically tracks your spending, credit score, net worth. No spreadsheet juggling required because the only spreadsheet I'm interested in is my to-thrift wish list. Okay, so Monarch can help us set up savings goals so I can start squirreling away dollars to be spent on secondhand manga, various little tchotchkes, who knows. It can also help with pay down goals if you have any kind of debt like credit card debt, student loans. There's a built-in payoff projection calculator that shows how long it will take to eliminate the debt based on contributions. And you can access your goals from anywhere, mobile app, a browser on your laptop. And if you want to try it out yourself, you can start your free trial and get 50% off your first year of total money clarity using my link below or code illustrated50 for 50% off Monarch Core Tier. Thank you, Monarch. Okay, next category, we're talking about candles. Candle making in general. You can make candles a bunch of different ways, whether you have a taper and you're dipping it in wax, or you have a mold and you're filling it with hot wax. I love the idea of making candles because I love making custom scents. I'm kind of a scent hound, or maybe even combining multiple candles that you know you like, melting them down, reconstituting them into some gorgeous amalgamation of smells. That sounds really fun. And if you don't want to make your own candle completely, but you do like to personalize everything in your life, I get that. You could take a boring candle, whether they're taper or they're bigger, and you can cut out little shapes out of thin sheets of wax and kind of just slap them on the side, almost with a fruit roll-up consistency. I feel like that is going to be super cute when it gets to be a little cooler and crisper in the autumn. That tip was from Nadia. Are you ready to talk about beads? A lot of people had a lot of things to say about these little guys. Had a couple people, including Curran and Jamie, talking about doing beaded crochet, which if you're a fiber artist, might be a fun thing to explore into, which I think you could add beads to just fashion crochet, but specifically they're pointing out making jewelry with this technique. So it requires a little tiny crochet hook and seed beads or small beads. Or if you want to just keep it simple, you can make your own beads in so many different ways. Trash Panda, which is fitting, was talking about this in the comments. You can use clay, paper, glass. Trash Panda was talking about how they're trying to make beads out of plastic bottles, which is where you strip plastic bottles into almost noodles and then roll those up and melt them just a little bit with a heat gun so that they stay in shape. That's interesting. Next, Lovers recommended French beading, which is apparently a very simple technique, but the end result is super complex looking. So you use glass beads to form flowers with wire. Look at these. Imagine having a bouquet of these. Lovers said the process is actually pretty simple. It's just really looping wire around itself, and the entry point cost pretty low. Just need beads and wire, maybe some pliers. Whoa, that rhymed. A lot of people were recommending making beaded curtains. That's something that I want to do. I know it's a throwback to a vintage craft, but I love the whole process, making the pattern, turning it kind of into a pixel grid and then stringing, thousands of beads together to make a kinetic piece of art that you interact with on the daily. Love it. Bong Throat, that's a name, has an idea for a massive beaded curtain, and they did the math and it would need like 20,000 beads, and they're gonna try and make them themselves. So good luck with that. That sounded sarcastic. It wasn't. Truly, good luck with that. Maria recently did a bead curtain where they did the whole process of making the pixel art and then putting it into like a pattern maker to get your guide. And then they actually painted a ton of wooden beads to get the colors they needed, which is a really fun little workaround for if you don't have the colors you need. Nice job, Maria. All right, enough with beads. Let's talk about glass, stained glass specifically. I talked a little bit about stained glass in the first guide, but I was kind of just like, you ever tried stained glass? People came into the comments and gave me lots of good ideas about trying stained glass. So first of all, maybe you don't have the tools or the resources to do actual stained glass. You can try out faux stained glass. I don't know how many more times I can say stained glass. I'll be real. So this is from Ariel. They recommended using like an old glass jar or bottle that you have, and then you can draw the outlines, basically the leading between each piece of glass, with puffy paint, whether it's gold or black, silver, whatever. And then you can fill in the outlines with watered down acrylic and then stick a candle in there and you get a beautiful glowy masterpiece. Or another recommendation, this came from Board Aesthetic, recommended using those theater light gels, so the colors that you put in front of lights to change the color. You can cut those into shapes and use the same kind of puffy paint technique in between to create a stained glass effect as well. Now we have stained glass, but make it cute. Alice recommends this. Another glass related craft, but expensive tools, is lamp working. Have you heard of lamp working? You use a small torch to melt glass and a mandrel to make beads or other objects. So if you've tried glass blowing, maybe you might want to try lamp working. And next, let's do stained glass, but make it melt. This is a recommendation from Lil Bun 888. Lil Bun recommends glass fusing. So you do the same glass cutting as in stained glass, but instead of soldering it all together, you stick it in a kiln and it melts it together. You can then use the fused elements in other stained glass or mosaics, or just keep it fused. Keep it simple. And Lil Bun says, if you're passing through San Jose, California, come try a class at BAGI where they teach fusing. Thanks, Lil Bun. That's cool. Hi, please don't be scared. I did change my shirt. I was getting sweaty talking about crafts. That never happened to you? Let's talk about fandoms. I'm a fangirl of many different fandoms. I love merch. I love little photo cards, but what if you made merch for your friends? This was an idea from Ashley. Thank you, Ashley. So Ashley made little Sanrio-esque mascots based on their friends, and then got fabric and embroidered and sewed little keychain plushies of the mascots so they could all have them on their bags and they all matched. That would be a really fun, I don't know, activity night to have. Like design your own little mascot. And then in the future, if you're making like invites or something, you can like have everybody's little mascot on it. Oh, so cute. I mean, it also could be as simple as like using some iron-on letters and making a little inside joke phrase graphic t-shirt. Make merch for your friends. It'll make life a lot more fun. Next, speaking of fandoms, so many people recommended this and I feel like a silly ding dong that I didn't include it in the first round. Cosplay. It's every craft in one. None of that says it includes things like making clothes, prop making, voice acting, makeup, performances, choreography. If you're not into it yet, a gentle jump into it might just be putting on an outfit or making an outfit and accessories based on your favorite character, so that when you go out in the day, you're kind of like, I kind of look like Kiki from Kiki's Delivery Service today, and that's cute. Next category, tech. We talked about tech a little bit in the first craft video, and let's expand upon it here. Mermaid and Fried Worms, what a duo. Talked about using e-waste as craft supplies. You can take keys off of keyboards to make little fidget clickies, keychains, turn it into a charm necklace. You can use it in mosaic, sculpture, or if you have a piece of tech that you really like, or you sit at your computer a lot, you can make a little critter, a little guy for your desk setup. So maybe a little polymer clay guy that sits on your keyboard that you use a little museum wax to secure him on with. I have that. Let me show you. I have this little glass kappa reclining. He just sits on my keyboard and he's just chilling, taking a nap. And every day I can admire his very chill attitude and rub his little belly. I mean, if you want to get really into this, I know people do like keycap covers that are very intricate, using resin to look like water and putting things in the water. It's a whole thing. Next, if you like video games or storytelling, this is a recommendation from Zinnia. I highly recommend creating a visual novel using slides or a PowerPoint. How cool! If you don't know what a visual novel is, it's basically a written story and a video game put together, like an interactive book. You can also make a choose your own adventure setup with these programs, which is really cool. That would be so fun to have a party, like everyone comes not with a PowerPoint, but with a little adventure or experience that everyone gets to experience together. And this is something that I'm kind of interested in. Sky recommends VTuber rigging. Do you know what a VTuber is? Short for virtual YouTuber. It's these character models that people use instead of their human appearance for streaming or YouTube videos that tracks with the movement of the person. It can also be controlled just with like keyboard shortcuts if you don't actually have a camera on you that can track your movements. Anyways, Sky says really rewarding, not incredibly hard, but very time consuming. This feels like a good thing to explore maybe if you're getting into like motion graphics, you're trying out After Effects. Make a little VTuber of yourself. I think this would be really fun to make like a collage version, something very 2D and textural. Who knows? And then here are the tech sicko tips. In the last video, we talked about making your own personal indie website, a la GeoCities in the early 2000s, late 90s. So Trash God recommends if you want a good spot to host your indie webpage, NeoCities has a free option and it will teach you coding along the way. Very cool. All right, we're veering away from tech and going very hands-on. Let's talk about paper, specifically paper making. So we talked about paper making in the first video, but Soph recommended functional handmade paper, specifically making paper pulp that you would then press into like a frame to make a sheet of paper, but instead of doing that, forming it around a 3D object so you can make like a bowl or a vessel of some sort. A customized little trinket dish made of paper scraps. I love that. Next, let's take it to the next level. Megan recommends papercrete. This is my first time hearing about this. It's basically concrete with paper pulp. So Megan says they usually use it to make planters in a similar technique to what we just talked about, where you form it around like an old bowl or something and poke holes in the bottom for drainage. And then finally, if you don't want to get messy with paper pulp, but we still want to make something with paper, have you explored origami before? I know it's pretty simple, and a lot of us have maybe tried it once or twice, but there's a whole world to it, obviously. Bioluminescently Unfolding 5716, what a beautiful name, says, I like to make those little origami stars, and you make one star every time something good happens, or if you're trying to like habit track, and then you put them in a jar over time. It becomes a visual representation of the good things in your life. How sweet. I learned how to make a paper crane in like 5th grade, and I'm pretty sure I still could whip one out. I made a lot of those paper cranes. And lastly, let's speed run some just miscellaneous crafty activities. I say crafty activities versus crafts because, well, you tell me if these count as crafts. Esme recommends cutting fruit and vegetable into pretty shapes. Snackable art. You could get into the art of plating. You could explore the art of building the perfect charcuterie or snack plate. I think putting together a really beautiful bento box for yourself for lunch that has sweetly cut little apples in the shape of flowers or something of this sort. It's just a little extra touch you can do for yourself or a loved one. Next, this kind of blew my mind when I saw this recommendation from Alexi. So you know I Spy or flat lays of things? Did you know that design type of laying things out in a grid has a name? It's called knolling, and it involves arranging objects in an organized grid and either taking pictures of them, attaching them to a board, or putting them in some sort of display. So Alexi says, I've been really interested in it as a way to display old toys and trinkets, but honestly it's a great craft for anything that catches your interest and you don't know what to do with. Like buttons, seashells, ticket stubs. Alexi says it's definitely got a junk journal aspect to it, which I know is hot right now, but more of 3D items. So get Nolan, people. Speaking of little objects, have you tried button making? Like with a little button press? I love a vintage like slogan button or political campaign button because their slogans were often very unhinged. I actually recently bought a little tray of tchotchkes at an estate sale auction because of one singular button. I bought the whole lot for this one button. Let me show you. I got this little tray of trash. It's actually like just broken vintage jewelry and these beautiful hand-painted hairpins. So not trash at all. Actually very, very beautiful and special. And there's 2 buttons in here. This is not the one that I bought it for, but it is very interesting. And it says, I'm a human being. Do not fold, spindle, or mutilate. Okay. And this is the one that I really, really wanted. I'm illiterate. It's funny because oh, this one is good too. It says Bigfoot reads. Like, who was this person? So cool. This could go over into the making merch for your friends. Maybe you have little buttons with slogans that you guys all say all the time. All right, Heather recommends doing coil baskets. I remember doing this in elementary school in art class. Now looking back, I think my art classes in elementary school were pretty comprehensive and cool. Thank you, Mrs. Liefeld. But maybe you're a fiber artist, has a lot of yarn around and you don't quite know what to do with it. Coil basket. Next, for you scent hounds out there, if you want more beautiful smells in your life, have you tried perfume making? You can make perfumes in so many different ways, whether it's just mixing essential oils with a carrier oil. I know there's also a really old technique of pressing flowers into like coconut oil. Ooh, doing that with lilac in the spring. Gorgeous. And now let's talk about our miscellaneous sicko craft tips. This could be anything, so get ready. First, we're talking about dried leaves. If you need dried leaves for a project, maybe you're journaling or collaging or making a fairy house, you might notice that it's kind of hard to find dried leaves when it's not fall, when the leaves aren't falling down and drying out. So, Paranoia Princess recommends trying out reptile pet stores or supply stores because they usually sell them. They say they're usually whole and they're pre-disinfected. So if you ever need some foliage, there you go. Next, we talked about sewing plushies and stuffed animals in the last video, or maybe customizing pre-existing plushies. And Matlock says sewing tiny clothes for plushies is really fun, or making tiny little accessories like glasses out of wire. So if you're like me and you can't alter the plushies because it hurts your soul to cut them apart, you can make them outfits and accessories and customize them instead. It's like Build-A-Bear without the whole first half where you foie gras it full of stuffing and give it a soul. Anyways, we also talked about how some people have never been to summer camp and they're still mad about it. Anonder Yonder says, for those who wish they went to summer camp, check out Arrowmont School in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. It's a professional arts and crafts summer camp, and you can learn all kinds of things like glass blowing, fiber arts, metalworking. Very cool. We did talk about whittling in the last video. So Caroline says, a note on spoon carving. Look to see if there's a spoon jam in your area. Spoon carvers often have events where they get together and just carve spoons. They might be able to help you, and it's just a great thing to be part of. So go join a spoon jam if you can. And finally, Rhapsody is Fire recommends having fun and not dying. So if you're going to make a mosaic and you're thrifting plates to smash and then use for the mosaic, just be sure to wear a mask and other safety gear when breaking them, and maybe test for lead, because you never know what you're going to get at the thrift store. You never know what you're going to get at any store, really. Take care of yourself. And that's it. Those are our niche crafts for today. How are you feeling? Do you have the infernal itch to go make some crafts now? Because I do. If you've ever tried any of these, please let me know down below. Seriously, like I said at the start, your insight and ideas are so valuable because a lot of people haven't tried this before and they might be interested and not know where to start. And maybe you watched part 1 and you're watching part 2 and you're like, my niche craft was not included. Drop it down below. Maybe we'll do a part 3. I'm not going to keep you any longer because I can see you champing at the bit to get out of here and start your creative adventure. So if you enjoyed the video, please feel free to subscribe if you'd like. We cover these kinds of topics all the time, and I will see you soon for another crafty, slightly unhinged video. I hope you're doing well and taking care of yourself and everyone around you. I love you. Goodbye.